Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how I do my Lara Croft makeup. I'm doing the Angelina Jolie movie version. First, I start with foundation to give myself a blank canvas and even complexion to work with. I use Revlon Color Stay Liquid Foundation. My foundation is currently slightly lighter than my natural skin tone because I've been getting sun lately and haven't updated it. But that doesn't matter because I can correct it later with bronzer. Then I dust over it with Bare Minerals Powder Foundation. Next, I use this e.l.f. eyeshadow in a dark beige color to contour my nose. Angelina Jolie's nose is shorter than mine, so to make mine look higher, I darken the bottom of the tip. Her nose is also straighter on the sides and slightly wider, so I lightly brush down straight lines on the side of my nose with contour. Also, to give my nose tip a slight button nose effect, I brush a little shadow over the top of the tip. Then I go over the sides again to make the contour lines a little wider, which will make the nose appear slightly wider as well. I dust on a little more dark eyeshadow between my brow bones and over the top of my nose to make it look more sunken in. Then I take some light powder from the Sedona Lace palette and brush it over the tip of my nose and blend it in. I also use a larger brush to add some light powder to my cheeks and jawline and around my eyes and on the center of my face. This helps brighten the face and even it out, which makes it easier to change it with contour. With the same e.l.f. eyeshadow and a wider brush, I apply the dark beige color to my temples and forehead. And I blend it in. Then I apply contour to my cheekbones, starting from the bottom of my hairline to across from where the bottom of my nose and outer edge of my eye meet. I also drag it down a bit around my mouth. Then I apply it to the outer edges of my eye and drag it upward, and blend it in. Then I define my jaw by outlining it with contour. Angelina Jolie has a very strong, sharp jawline, while mine is very soft and oval, so I do what I can to recreate that. And I blend it in. Now to match my foundation to the rest of my skin. I dust over my face with this Bare Minerals bronzing powder. I don't apply too much, I just want a really light sun-kissed glow. Then I blend it all in. Now with the light powder again, I define my nose more to make sure it looks full enough and not as bumpy as my natural nose. Before I do my eye makeup, I'm going to put in my contact lenses. I got these contact lenses from Unique, so I will add a link in the description. The color I got is gray, but they appear to be greenish blue on dark eyes like mine. You can really see what a dramatic difference they make. For the eyes, first I'm going to start with Surreal Makeup in the shade A-List. I'm applying it right over my entire eyelid to brighten it up. And just a little bit underneath my eye as well. I groom my eyebrows a bit with a brush, then apply some more eyeshadow to my brow bone. And a little bit across the tip of my nose. And over my upper lip. And I blend it in. I plucked the heck out of my eyebrows for this look, but you could also cover them in Elmer's glue if you prefer and just draw them on. I'm using the Elmer's glue here to hold the hairs in place and make them easier to cover. I use an e.l.f. eyeliner pencil to redefine my brows. Remember to keep them very thin with a bold arch. Then with the darker beige eyeshadow again, I apply it to the outer edges of my eye and drag it upward to my eyebrow and fill in the crease. I also add some eyeshadow under my eye. Then with a black liquid eyeliner, I stay very close to the upper lash line and draw a small upward wing. I continue it all the way to the tear duct. Then I curl my lashes and generously apply mascara to the top lashes. and lightly on the bottom. and remove any clumps on the bottom lashes with my fingers. The goal is to keep it slightly natural looking. Now for the most important part of the look, the lips. First I start with a lip stain just to give myself a base shape to work with. I overdraw my top lip quite a bit and make the cupid's bow less defined. Then I go over my bottom lip just to add some color. Next, I take a darker lip stain and apply it to the inner edges of my mouth. And to make my lips look puffier, I draw 2 lines near the middle of my top lip, and a line down the center of the bottom lip. I also very lightly line the top of my lip. Then with a dark beige eyeshadow, I make little shadows in my cupid's bow dimple and on the sides of it under my nostrils. I also add some shadows to the corners of my mouth. Then I take Surreal Makeup again in the shade A-List and highlight above my lip. Then with a natural pink lip liner, I fill in my lips and clean up the shape. Then with a light beige liner pencil, I add a highlight line right under my darker lip line. I also highlight the center of my upper lip and the sides of my bottom lip, and I blend it in with my finger. I use the pink liner to blend things in a bit more. Then a light brown liner to neutralize the pink color. Then I pat my lips with a beige foundation to make them look more natural. And I take a dark brown liner pencil and add dots to the corners of my mouth. And I blend it. Now that the lips are done, I'm going to reshape my hairline. I just do this with a dark brown matte eyeshadow and make my hairline sharper like Angelina Jolie's. Make sure you soften the edges so it's not too bold. This also really helps make my forehead look more square instead of oval. I also use this color to add a little more definition to the outer corners of my eyes. Then I take my hair down and brush out any knots so I can begin braiding it. First, I section the top of my hair and pull down 2 strands in the front. This costume was the first time I ever French braided my hair myself, and it is not fun. It's super time consuming and my arms get very sore while doing it, so I highly recommend you have someone help you. Or look on YouTube for French braiding tutorials because there are plenty of them that can explain it much better and have more experience doing this hairstyle. Then I secure the top section with a hairband because this makes the process so much easier. I also fill in any skin showing on my scalp and hair separations with dark eyeshadow. Then I begin to French braid. Before I get to the bottom of my hair, I'm going to put in this long loose hair. This is super cheap hair I found on eBay, and I just put a hairband in the middle of it so I can tie it to my own hair. I take a small section from the bottom of my hair near my neck and wrap the hair in a hairband. Now that I have the hairpiece attached to my hair, it's ready to be braided. So I continue the French braiding. I take small sections of hair and add them to the braid as I go down the back of my head. Eventually, when I get to the nape of my neck, the French braid turns into a regular braid. This is when I start blending the hair extension and the braid all the way down to the end. If there are some loose ends because of the drastic difference in length, don't worry, you can pin, clip, spray, or gel those down later. I generously spray the hair to hold it in place and flatten any lumps or loose hairs. This is Got To Be Spray, which is a very strong hold freeze spray that works great for costumes and wigs. I will add a link in the description. I use the spray to make the 2 strands in the front hold their separation. And that's pretty much it for the makeup. for the costume. I got this basic crewneck dark brown t-shirt and the capris from the thrift shop for only $3 each. Since she wears shorts, I traced on where I wanted to cut them, leaving enough space to fold and roll up the edges. Then I cut them into shorts. Then I fold up the edge twice and pin them in place. Then I sew down the edge. Now, time to move on to the guns. These were 3D printed by my fiance and I. It was our first 3D print project ever and we did a lot of experimenting, but since this was our first project, I don't feel comfortable giving advice about 3D printing. The filament we used was black, but I added another coat of black paint anyway. Then I painted over the top of it with some silver paint, and I added some details and cleaned up the edges with more black. So I would recommend looking online for guns that are similar, or commissioning a prop artist if you are unable to figure out a way to make them yourself. Now for the belts and the holsters. I cut strips and shapes into craft foam, then I folded and sewed down fabric over the shapes. Once all the edges and fabric were sewn over the foam, I pinned the pieces together. Once it was pinned, I sewed it all together. Then I added grommets and studs to the belt. I marked where I wanted to put them with chalk. Then I cut holes where I wanted to insert the grommets. And I pressed them down with some pliers. For the belt buckle, I just cut a rectangular shape with slightly curved edges onto craft foam. Then I cut out a skull shape with craft foam as well and added indentations and details to it with a Sharpie marker. If you firmly press a Sharpie marker down on foam, you can make indentations without needing a Dremel tool. It also works with pens. It's a really cheap, accessible, and simple way to add detailing to foam pieces. After that, I applied a thick layer of Mod Podge to seal the foam and prime it for paint. I let the Mod Podge dry, then covered it in gold craft paint. I use darker colors like black and brown and mix it in to define indentations and make the gold look more worn and aged. Then I let it dry and sealed it with Mod Podge. After that, I applied some super glue to the back of it and glued it over the belt I made earlier. Now for the gun holsters. I cut these weird shapes out of TreeFlx, which is a recycled thermoplastic. I heat up the edges to make them easier to cut with scissors. Then I heat up the pieces so I can bend them. Once it's warm enough to bend, I fold it over my gun. I also cut little thin strips and heat them up and apply them to the bottom of the holster. Then I wrap it around the tip of my gun so the guns sit snugly inside. Here it is, all cooled down and finished with the shape. Then I just use spray glue and the same fabric that I made the belts out of, and I cover the holster in fabric. It's kinda tedious and can be messy if you're not careful, so take your time. To hold down the edges as they dry, I use some clothespins to hold down the fabric. I also leave some loose extra fabric around the edges so I can sew it to my leg straps. Here's the belt and holsters all finished and attached. I sewed Velcros to the end of the belt so I could attach it in the back. All I do is step into each leg, slide it up, then Velcro it in the back. And here it is on. Then I take my finished guns and pop them gently into the holsters and they just sit in place. And since these holsters are shaped specifically to the guns, they don't fall out when I walk or run. Next, for the shoes that weren't difficult at all, I put on dark socks up to my mid-calf. Then I put on some combat boots that I already had from Walmart. Then I made these upper boot extensions. They're just vinyl with a strap across them that velcros in the back. Now I'm going to give you a tip on how I did the larger chest. I got these fake boobies by searching drag queen boobies on eBay. They were exactly what I needed other than the width of them. They were too close together, so I ended up cutting them down the middle and separating them. I took an old sports bra and cut some openings in the side of it and inserted the separated pieces. Then I sewed the bra back together. As you can see, I didn't care what color thread I used because no one would see it under the costume anyway. Here's what the chest piece looks like on. The reason I didn't just wear a normal padded bra is because bras would push them up and together. And I wanted to create a more braless looking hang and slope and have them sit more wide set. I can think of a few characters this could help with, and it works for men and women. And that's pretty much it. I really hope you guys found this tutorial helpful. The more natural makeup looks are some of the hardest looks to transform your face with since you have very little you can hide behind. This is a really simple and comfortable costume to wear to cons and give yourself a break from the bigger costumes all weekend. But it still gets a great response because people really love Tomb Raider. Huge shout out to Surreal Makeup for the amazing eyeshadows, and TreeFlx for the very useful material. Please be sure to check out the description for all the helpful links to products and supplies before asking where I got something. And thank you to my patrons over on Patreon for helping me be able to create these tutorials. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Bye!